The IAO formula. Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. This is Taliesin McKnight, and today I wanted to talk about something that I have that's helped me quite a bit throughout my life. Something that I've reflected on throughout my life, something that's helped me quite a bit. As you can see, I got a haircut. This is new lighting also. I'm not used to like all the bright lights. Got a little bit of a haircut, a little bit of a beard trim, y'all. But, anyways, I think it's good. It's good to mix it up a little bit. But, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about the IAO formula. This is something that I learned about in my early 20s on my spiritual path. And it's something that still helps me to this day. It is the cyclical nature of reality. It is the cyclical nature, especially whenever we're trying to work on a project, something that we're working on. It's like this circle behind me. It's a cycle. It's kind of like a life cycle. The IAO formula. So the three letters IAO, IAO, IAO. This basically represents birth. A represents death. And then the letter O represents resurrection. In a nutshell, I stands for Isis, which represents whenever we're beginning a routine. It could be a meditation practice, it could be going to the gym, it could be starting a business. This is the honeymoon stage. This is where we're excited, we feel motivated with what we're doing, we're really excited about what we're doing. So this is the stage where we're really excited. We feel good about it, right? This is the letter I. It represents Isis. This is birth. This is where things are new. So let's say that you're starting to go to the gym and work out. You're feeling motivated. You're feeling great about going to the gym. You're feeling really good. You're excited. Or starting a business. You're excited about your business. You're feeling motivated. You're feeling great about it. Stage 2, the second stage, is the letter A, which stands for Apophis. Apophis was an Egyptian deity, a serpent deity of darkness and chaos, the enemy of the sun god Ra, which every night in Egyptian mythology would try to conquer Ra. So, Apophis or Apep, the letter A represents a death cycle. This is when things get tough. This is when you no longer feel motivated. This is when it becomes dry or boring. This is where most people stop. So let's go to the analogy of working out in the gym. You start off with the Isis phase, the letter I, like the goddess Isis, or Isa. You start off excited, you're energized, you're enthusiastic. Yes, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to start this business. Stage 2 is where most people quit. This is when it feels dry. You're not excited, you're not motivated, it feels boring. You don't really feel like going to the gym anymore. You don't want to go. This is where most people stop. This is why a lot of people never really get anywhere, because as soon as it's no longer exciting, a lot of people stop what they're doing. This is when people stop going to the gym. So a lot of people, using the going to the gym and working out analogy, a lot of people go to the gym and then they stop. And then they're right back where they started. And then later on, they may go to the gym again a few years later, and then they stop. And they can't hardly get themselves going in this because they're not persevering through this period of purgation, this dark night of the soul, this death process, this putrefaction stage. Okay, the key is to continue with the practice whether you feel like it or not. And if you persevere, you get to the third and final state, represented by the letter O and Osiris. And this represents resurrection. It's not a return to the first state. It is a superior state. You have weathered the storm at the sea and you've come out victorious. You have slayed the dragon. You have gone through the period of mortificatio or death, and you have come through the other side. You have to go through this death process and you come out stronger than you were before. This is the superior state. Now, when applying it to a business or a relationship or going to the gym and working out or any kind of project that you're working on, sometimes you try something out and it really isn't for you. Okay? That's the exception. But generally, whenever you start something and you're excited, just know that that will probably pass. Probably, not always. Generally, though, that exciting stage will pass, and there'll come to a time where you don't feel like going. It feels boring. It feels like a drag. Continue. Even if for nothing but the discipline, we continue through this death cycle until we come through the other side reborn, resurrected, in a higher state of being. We have been forged through struggle and fire. So, this is something that's always helped me out. You start off excited, then you go through a dry period. The key is to continue with the work. If for nothing else than the discipline, we continue. We pass through the dark night of the soul. We pass through the darkest hour is before dawn. We continue. And the good news is we return to a feeling of excitement and joy in the practice, but it's at a higher state. It's in a superior state, and we've gained the discipline. We have weathered the storm. Eliphas Levi's Baphomet image shows the torch of illumination passing between the horns, between the duality. We gain strength by resistance. It's by the friction of rubbing two things together that heat is produced and a fire. So it's through the struggle. We find that the enemy is the initiator. Whenever we have to battle up against something, we pass through that struggle different than we were before. We are transformed. We are changed. So this is something that's helped me out quite a bit. Is that when things are no longer exciting, or you feel bored with something, or you don't feel motivated anymore, the key is to continue. Not always. There are times where you really see that it's better to spend your energies elsewhere, but generally speaking, this is a good practice. So the IAO formula, IAO, I stands for Isis, A stands for Apophis, that's the death cycle, O stands for Osiris, resurrection. You have to pass through this darkness period. You have to pass through this death, through this struggle, to come through the other side. You know, Joseph Campbell talked about the fool's journey and how we have to slay the dragon or whatever. We see in our mythologies, we even see in our films, the same motif. You see a beginning that's like an innocence, and from the innocence they have to go through some type of struggle or catastrophe, and passing through the other side they come through in a superior state. So you could say that in our stories and our mythologies, even in our movies, a lot of times it kind of goes through this IAO cycle. So also IAO is the Greek rendition. It's normally understood as the Greek rendition of the Hebrew name of God Yahweh or Jehovah, Yao, and it appears in the Greek magical papyri Yao Sabao. We see it in the Gnostic texts as a word for the demiurge. And then also Kabbalistically in modern lodge magic, this derives from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was a British secret society that taught magic, ceremonial magic, in the late 19th century. This was part of the Adeptus Minor ritual, entering into the second or Rosicrucian order. One went through a kind of death and resurrection process, dying in this, like an alchemical Christianity, dying with Christ and resurrecting. The second order of the classical Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is a very Christian ritual, also associated with the vault of Christian Rosenkreuz. You know, post, after 120 years, there comes this they discover the tomb, the vault of Christian Rosenkreuz. And of course the Rose Cross, and that's a whole other thing to get into. The Rose Cross has to do with the union of opposites, the phallus and the yoni, the rose and the rood, and also it has to do with this idea of death and resurrection, the cross of Calvary. And also this was associated with INRI, which we know as Jesus Nazarenus Rex Judaeorum, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. In the alchemical literature of, the Renaissance, this was reinterpreted alchemically as igne natura renovatur integra. The whole of nature is renewed through fire. Things are purified through this struggle, through this death, through this process of purgation. Even if you look at, and I'm not trying to make this super Christian, but some of this stuff in Europe was passed through a Christian lens. The 3 stages. You begin with the stage of purgation. Okay, so I'm going to read here a passage on this from Book 4, or Liber Abba, or Liber ABA. Okay, so we're looking in, is it Magic Theory and Practice? We're going to see here. Chapter 5, I'm going to read a little bit of this. Chapter 5, the formula of IAO, or IAO. And just keep in mind that the letter I, Isis, that's our initial excitement, our initial joy, in which we find in the practice. The letter A, Apophis, that's the death stage. We don't feel like continuing, right? Fight, y'all. Continue with the struggle. If you pass through this death process and you continue with the practice, you don't stop. You continue through this spiritual dry period. You come into a superior state of Osiris. So most people stop at stage 2. The key is to continue. And of course, we see asceticism and these types of practices, in many different spiritual traditions around the world. Initiation itself has a catastrophic aspect. In some traditions kind of water that down. So I'm going to read here chapter 5, the formula of IAO. We're reading from book 4, Magic and Theory and Practice, chapter 5. So I'm going to read here. We'll do a little bit of reading together. So I kind of broke it down, my interpretation, my understanding, and now we're going to read what this text says. So you're not just getting my opinion, you're getting also from these sources. So it says, so chapter 5, the formula of IAO. This, from Magic and Theory and Practice, this formula is the principal and most characteristic formula of Osiris, of the redemption of mankind. I is Isis, nature, ruined by Apophis the destroyer, and restored to life by the Redeemer Osiris. This is also found in the hexagram ritual, INRI, Yod Nun Resh Yod, Isis Apophis Osiris Yao. Anyways, the same idea is expressed by the Rosicrucian formula of the Trinity, ex Deo nascimur, in Jesu morimur, per Spiritum Sanctum reviscimus. From God we are born, in Christ we die, and through the Holy Spirit we are reborn. This is also identical with the word lux, LVX, which is formed by the arms of a cross. It is this formula which is implied in those ancient and modern monuments in which the phallus is worshipped as the savior of the world. The doctrine of resurrection, as vulgarly understood, is false and absurd. It is not even scriptural. St. Paul does not identify the glorified body which rises with the mortal body which dies. On the contrary, he repeatedly insists on the distinction. The same is true of a magical ceremony. The magician who is destroyed by absorption in the Godhead is really destroyed. The miserable mortal automaton remains in the circle. It is of no more consequence to him than the dust of the floor. But before entering into the details of IAO, as a magic formula, it should be remarked that it is essentially the formula of yoga, or meditation, in fact of elementary mysticism in all its branches. In beginning a meditation practice, there is always a quiet pleasure, a gentle natural growth. One takes a lively interest in the work. It seems easy. One is quite pleased to have started. This stage represents Isis. Sooner or later, stage 2, sooner or later, it is succeeded by depression, the dark night of the soul, an infinite weariness and detestation of the work. The simplest and easiest acts become almost impossible to perform. This is where most people quit. Such impotence fills the mind with apprehension and despair. The intensity of this loathing can hardly be understood by any person who has not experienced it. This is the period of Apophis, the letter A. It is followed by the arising not of Isis, but of Osiris. That's if you persevere through this period. It is followed by the arising not of Isis, but of Osiris. The ancient condition is not restored, but a new and superior condition is created, a condition only rendered possible by the process of death. The alchemists themselves taught this same truth. The first matter of the work was base and primitive, though natural. After passing through various stages, the black dragon appeared, but from this arose the pure and perfect gold. Even in the legend of Prometheus, we find an identical formula concealed, and a similar remark applies to those of Jesus Christ and of many other mythical god-men worshipped in different countries. A magical ceremony constructed on this formula is thus, and think of like the third degree of Masonry, a magical ceremony constructed on this formula is thus in close essential harmony with the natural mystic process. We find it the basis of many important initiations, notably the third degree in Masonry and the Adeptus Minor ceremony of the Golden Dawn, described in Equinox 1:3. A ceremonial self-initiation may be constructed with advantage on this formula. The essence of it consists in robing yourself as a king, then stripping and slaying yourself, symbolically, and rising from that death to the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. There is an etymological identity between tetragrammaton, Yud-He, Vav-He, and IAO, but the magical formulae are entirely different, as a description here given has shown. Professor William James, in his Varieties of Religious Experience, has well classified religion as the once-born and the twice-born, but the religion now proclaimed in Liber Legis harmonizes these by transcending them. There is no attempt to get rid of death by denying it, as among the once-born, nor to accept death as the gate of a new life, as among the twice-born. With the AA, life and death are equally incidents in a career. Very much so life and death are equally incidents in a career, very much like day and night in the history of a planet. I'm going to read that again. Life and death are equally incidents in a career, very much like day and night in the history of a planet. Life and death. But to pursue the simile, we regard this planet from afar. A brother of AA looks at what another person would call himself as one, or rather some, among a group of phenomena. He is that nothing whose consciousness is in one sense the universe considered as a single phenomenon in time and space, and in another sense is the negation of that consciousness. The body and mind of the man are only important, if at all, as the telescope of the astronomer to him. If the telescope were destroyed, it would make no appreciable difference to the universe which that telescope reveals. It will now be understood that this formula of IAO is a formula of Tiferet. The magician who employs it is conscious of himself as a man liable to suffering, and anxious to transcend that state by becoming one with God. It will appear to him as the supreme ritual, as the final step. But, as has already been pointed out, it is but a preliminary. For the normal man today, however, or woman, it represents considerable attainment, and there is much earlier work whose investigation will occupy Chapter 6. The master Therion in the 17th year of the Aeon has reconstructed the word IAO to satisfy the new conditions of magic imposed by progress. I don't think we need to read through all of this. Well, you get the idea. Well, I might as well. The master Therion in the 17th year of the Aeon has reconstructed the word IAO to satisfy the new conditions of magic imposed by progress. The word of the law being Thelema, whose number is 93, this number should be the canon of a corresponding mass. Accordingly, he has expanded IAO by treating the O as an ion, and then adding vowel as prefix and affix. The full word is then Viao, whose number is 93. We may analyze this new word in detail and demonstrate that it is a proper hieroglyph of the ritual of self-initiation in this Aeon of Horus. For the correspondence in the following note, see Liber 777. The principal points are these. Atu, tarot trump. The Hierophant, Osiris enthroned and crowned with wand, 4 worshippers. The Hermit, Hermes with lamp, wings, wand, cloak, and serpent. The Fool, the babe in the egg on the lotus, Bacchus Defuus, etc. The Devil, Baphomet enthroned and adorned by male and female. IAO varies in significance with successive eons. Aeon of Isis, matriarchal age, the great work conceived as a straightforward, simple affair. We find the theory reflected in the customs of matriarchy. Parthenogenesis is supposed to be true. The Virgin, Yod, Virgo, contains in herself the principle of growth, the epicene hermetic seed. It becomes the babe in the egg, A, Harpocrates, by virtue of the spirit, A is air, impregnating the mother, the vulture, and this becomes the sun, S-U-N, or sun, S-O-N. The vowel, the letter of Tiferet, 6, even when spelled as Omega in Coptic, see 777. In the Aeon of Osiris, the patriarchal age, 2 sexes. I, conceived as the father wand, Yod of Tetragrammaton. A, the babe is pursued by the dragon, who casts a flood. Vowel, the sun, S-U-N, and the sun, S-O-N. He is supposed to be mortal, But how is this shown? It seems an absolute perversion of truth. The sacred symbols have no hint of it. This lies the essence of the great sorcery. Osirian religion is a Freudian fantasy fashioned on man's dread of death and ignorance of nature. The parthenogenesis idea persists, but is now the formula for incarnating demigods or divine kings. There must be slain and raised from the dead in one way or another. The Aeon of Horus. 2 sexes in 1 person. Viao. 93. The full formula recognizing the sun, S-U-N, as the sun, S-O-N, or star, as the pre-existent manifested unit from which all springs and to which all returns. The great work is to make the initial Vau of Asiya, the world of material illusion, into the final Vau of Absolute, the world of pure reality. Okay, and then it goes on here. These symbols are all shown in the Atu the Hermit. They are the powers of the Yod, whose extension is the vow. Yod is the hand wherewith man does his will. It is also the Virgin, his essence is inviolate. A is the babe who has formulated his father and made fertile his mother, Harpocrates, etc. as before, but he develops to O, the exalted devil, see the other secret eye, by the formula of the initiation of Horus elsewhere described in detail. All right. I think that's enough, you know. We don't have to go through all of this. But basically, this formula of birth, death, and resurrection is something that we see whenever we're working towards. It can be starting a business, it could be going to the gym, it could be beginning a spiritual practice, a daily routine. You begin excited, then comes stage 2, where it becomes empty and dry. You don't feel like continuing. This is where most people stop. If you persevere, you get to the higher stage, represented by the letter O in Osiris. So, of course, you know, you may see that something isn't for you, so it's okay to stop. But generally speaking, it's good to continue and build that strength through resistance. We lean upon that which resists. If we don't lean upon that which resists, we fall over. It is through resistance, through friction of two opposite things, that heat and fire is generated in light. Okay? It is union with opposites. We go through a death process. This struggle makes us stronger. It brings us to a superior state of things. So, that's just my video for today. This is for Patreon. I really do appreciate y'all for watching my videos and for subscribing. It really does mean a lot, and it helps me out a great deal. So thank you so much for being Patreon supporters. And after a year, this will go public to everybody. But for right now, it's just y'all. Alright, y'all, so that's it for now. And I will see y'all in the next video. Alright, have a great day, y'all.